All right, everybody, welcome in. This is Eagles Talk on A2D Radio. Let's go on PY. Rob Brinkman in the house. Talking stock up, stock down. We're talking concerns about this team as we barrel towards Brazil. Let's go. All right, everybody, welcome in. This is Eagles Talk, exclusively on A2D Radio, live from the Real Talk Studios, broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X, and Instagram. Download us wherever you get your podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Each and every week, we are brought to you by our good friends at Baggio's Breads, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuffed breads, tomato pies, sandwiches, cutlets, and meatballs. Mention A2D Radio, 10% off your in-store purchase. And fellas, last Saturday and last Sunday, between college and pro football, are the last such Saturday and Sundays until 2025.
Thank you, Jesus.
It's a cheery note to start on there.
Barreling towards Brazil. I just came up with that right off the top of my head. I love it. I'm going to T-shirts possibly incoming, barreling towards Brazil. But we got a little bit to wait. We're talking stock up. We're talking stock up, stock down. We're talking Eagles. We're going to get their third preseason game, a game at the link, finally, so the fans can enjoy the battles for the last couple guys on the roster. Let's get right into it. Our poll question of the night: the Eagles should trade for John Mechie to bolster their wide receiver 3 position. PY, what do you think?
So I gotta go now. Like, I like Mechie. I think he's an interesting story. I think there's talent there. But, like, if I'm going with wide receiver 3, like, I need someone more proven. And there's just not enough tape on Mechie. Like, I would maybe be willing to risk it if I'm giving up, like, a 6th or 7th rounder on him. I don't really want to be giving up any, like, serious draft capital for the kid. But, like, I really like Hunter Renfrow. I would love nothing more than to go out and get Hunter Renfrow and make him my wide receiver 3. He's been able to do it. He's a big time guy in the slot. Like, and when you're going from playing like slop with the Raiders to nothing but gold with the Eagles, like, it's going to make you a little bit more excited to play football and to succeed. And especially in a Kellen Moore offense, like, that could be a lot of fun for him. Like I as much as I like Mechie, like, I need a real wide receiver 3. Like, I can't have another Quez Watkins situation where it's like, all right, just wait. This is where he turns it. This is where he turns the corner. Just wait. We waited 3 years because of one season where I was like, oh, look how good he is. No, he wasn't good. Jalen Reagor just sucked. Like, Jalen Reagor was so bad that people, like, bought into Quez Watkins. Like that tells you how bad the wide receiver 3 position has been. Greg Ward was our wide receiver 3 at one point. Like, that's the bottom of the barrel. And I understand people will just say, well, why?
I don't know that Greg's the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
If the Colts hadn't signed him, I would be advocating for that, frankly. Pretty reliable guy, you know.
Like, I like Greg Ward. Everyone liked Greg Ward, but, like, he's a bottom of the barrel, like, NFL roster guy. Like,
yeah, okay, yeah.
He's your 53rd or 54th person on the NFL roster. Like, great story, great guy, but, like, there's a reason why he's undrafted. There's a reason why he was playing in the AAF or the AFL or USFL, whatever the hell league you want to pick. Like, that just is what it is. Like you want to go out and get someone who you can trust in. Like the former guy from the Packers who plays on the Jets. What his name is? Who?
Allen Lazard.
Yeah, Allen Lazard. I'd take Allen Lazard. Like, that would be a solid pickup.
PY, just to clarify.
The thing is, though, these guys have to be available. I mean,
well, he's available. I know I think Renfro is definitely available. The Raiders are kind of a hot mess right now.
But the whole, I was looking up Mechie when I heard we were going to talk about this tonight, and he just came off a hell of a game. He had like 8 catches, for a bunch of yards in their last preseason game, and I don't think anybody there is really talking about we got to get rid of this guy. It is an interesting story. He went through the leukemia after being drafted the second round. He didn't do much last year in his first year back from leukemia, and I know they have other people, but I'm not sure that they're like eager to part with him or anything. He might not have a prominent role with them, but I don't know. I mean, they do need the Eagles have a need there. There's no question about that. It's been a long time since that position, since there wasn't a guy in training camp that people were excited about, which is by the way, the other thing that I was told we were going to discuss today was the Tanner McKee, the quarterbacking thing. And this dovetails for me very nicely, if you'll indulge me for a moment. Usually fans get all fired up about a wide receiver in training camp.
Yep.
Paul Turner or Greg Ward or somebody like that. Well, there's nobody this year. So what are they doing? They're obsessing over
the backup quarterback.
Position.
Speaking of,
which almost never gets a lot of, there's very seldom a lot of buzz about that. But
we sure about that?
I don't think,
in Philly
lately, most years it's been okay. This guy, Marcus Mariota's the backup and so-and-so's the number 3. And, that away we go, unless you're thinking the years when the people wondered if the backup should be the number 1. I'm not really counting that. I'm just saying who should be number 2 isn't really usually a big deal in training camp. Sometimes it is, but not year in and year out. Whereas there's always a wide receiver, it seems like, people are excited about, and there just isn't this year. There's nobody that has stood out. I thought Johnny Wilson was going to be that guy, but he is not. And Paris Campbell's been hurt.
Yeah,
I think he could have probably gotten some fans going, but he hasn't had the chance. And it's been grim. That really, if there was a guy like that, it's that the tight end that looked real good. That former receiver turned tight end. Who flashed, I thought, Thursday, Jenkins. But there isn't a wide receiver that anybody thinks is any good outside the top 2.
That guy Jenkins, he was a buzz guy before camp started with who's going to be. We played the game who's going to be the Paul Turner this year a few weeks ago. A lot of people on the internet had that Jenkins guy because he's so big and strong and he's going to be playing against 4 stringers. He was going to be able to pile up some stats. But I mean,
put him in the slot.
Put him in the slot. Yeah. Now, PY, I'm surprised. So you've been pretty outspoken that the third wide receiver is not on this team.
Yeah.
Which after evaluating the landscape of the Philadelphia Eagles throughout, the training camp and 2 preseason games, you were 100% correct. But you just don't like John Mechie. You'd rather
no. Let me reiterate. I like John Mechie. I see talent there. My issue is I just don't know enough of what is there for me to be like, wide receiver 3, let's go. Can I guarantee he's better than Paris Campbell? No. Can I guarantee he's better than the guy from Cincinnati? No. There's a lot of big what ifs when it comes to him.
And what do you want to give up for him, as you mentioned?
Exactly. It's not like you're getting him for free.
Right.
So I would trade sure. I'll agree to the poll. Let's get John Mechie. Sure. I think it is pretty safe bet that he is better than John Ross. He's better than Paris Campbell. Nick Sirianni seems to really, really like Britton Covey. I think if they released a depth chart and went to Brazil this Friday, I think Britton Covey would be playing a lot as the third wide receiver, whether inside, outside, trick plays, whatever.
And I don't think he's bad. I do think, though, he's so small that if you play him a lot in the offense, he's going to get hurt. And then when you use a returner at a position and he gets hurt, then you're missing two things.
Well, I don't think the problem is he's probably going to have to be the punt returner because Cooper DeJean is hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think that was happening regardless. So
what if Cooper DeJean was healthy? I mean, he would be the punt returner.
I disagree. Covey was one of the top 10 returners in the NFL last year. Like
he really was. Yeah.
He was a Pro Bowl returner last year.
Yeah.
He just wasn't a Pro Bowler.
I'm not sure you want to get DeJean hurt returning punts. Either.
Exactly.
Well, he got hurt stretching, so.
Yeah.
So it kind of seems like it was only a matter
of a while too, not hurt for a couple days.
Let's get some comments here. Keep them coming. We're gonna get to them all. Talking Eagles. Pove is in the house. Big trade in the NHL today. They'll be talking about that. Patrick Laine getting traded out of nowhere.
I assume that's a person.
Yes, he is. You got to watch the Hockey Happy Hour and got to learn your stuff because Pove knows his stuff. He's on the Hockey Happy Hour. John Malmos, totally disagree. Washington will be cutting Jahan Dotson. Stick him in the slot.
There's been talk about that. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but if it does, I kind of agree. I wouldn't mind Jahan Dotson. Yeah,
that's fine. All the Penn State, Delaware Valley people will be.
Keep in mind, we're not going to get a Pro Bowler in here to be the third wide receiver.
I understand that. PY understands that. You understand that. But, some of the people out there, with all due respect, get a little excited, Les.
What do you mean we can't have Devontae Adams in the slot?
Right. Yeah.
Mechie would be Avon 2.0, and all he did was catch balls at Alabama. I mean, I suppose from a hand standpoint, but, I mean, all due respect to Jason. All due respect to Jason Avant, I mean, I think John Mechie has a little more pop to his game. By pop,
Avant was a pretty good 3, though. I mean, he wasn't fast, but he could,
That's what I mean by
if
pop.
you had him in his prime right now with Devontae and AJ, that would be wonderful. I would take that in a minute.
That would we would have to have a different poll question. I totally agree with you, but I think John Mechie has a little more explosiveness than.
Yeah, Mechie was a second-round pick, and Avant was a fourth-round pick. I agree with that.
And then Mr. Ellis. I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis, checking us out on YouTube. I'm not even going to try on your last name. No disrespect intended. He likes Hunter Renfrow. And then Malmos, totally disagree. If we make any trades, we better get an edge rusher. We don't need BG playing over 15 snaps a game. Well,
I'm not sure you'll have to. I'm not sure.
John, edge rush is a premier position in this league. And if the Eagles wanted to add an edge rusher, they just missed their chance because a pretty good one, albeit him coming off an injury, Matthew Judon, got traded to Atlanta for, I believe, third-round pick with some, conditions to it.
Yeah, if you were going to make a move there, that would be the move. But you'd have to pay Judon. He wants a contract, and I believe he turned 32 the other day.
Yep.
Coming
Which
off
is not what the
injury.
Eagles are doing right
There's
now.
no way in the world how he's going to do that, and he shouldn't do that. Atlanta thinks they're going to make a big run this year. I guess I'll have to see that, but with a rookie quarterback or with Kirk Cousins, but we'll see. But Judon, you're right. Judon was the prominent name. You're not going to get anybody right now that's going to move the needle at edge rusher without giving up an awful lot. Because like Rob said, it is a very prominent position, and those guys are precious. You maybe get Hassan Reddick back if you want to pay him now, but you didn't want to pay him 3 or 4 months ago, so I can't imagine you want to pay him now.
Yep, edge rusher, too valuable. You missed your chance with Judon. No one's walking in the door.
Yeah.
As an edge rusher to this football
I'm a
team.
little bit optimistic there. I think Jalix Hunt looks like he might actually be able to give you some snaps, which I was thinking he was totally a developmental, bottom of the roster, inactive on game day kind of guy as a rookie. But Who knows? Maybe he isn't. I don't think they're as bad. I think Sweat looks pretty good right now. I think Huff, certainly had an encouraging performance against New England for his brief time he was out there. I think they'll still be better in the middle of the defensive line than they will be outside. But if the middle is really, 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 really good, that's not terrible.
All right, here we go. We're going Brinkman hot take on Jalix Hunt because I think there's something there. The Eagles' rookie record for sacks is 9.5.
Oh, Jesus
by Corey Simon.
Oh, God.
In 2000.
He never did that again in his whole career.
He did not. How about double-digit sacks for Jalix Hunt?
Wow.
How about someone's got to step up?
That's a hot take. That's a scalding hot take.
I don't like the term hot take. We're going to go bold prediction.
That's a hot take. No. That's not a bold prediction. That's a hot take.
I'm in on him. I'm in on the guy. I don't
like a bold statement is Nolan Smith could end up being one of the best pass rushers on the Eagles. That's a bold statement. You stating
that's fuel. That's fuel to my fire right there because I think Nolan
Smith.
What
are you talking about? 3 months ago. 3 months ago, you were talking about what a waste of a pick he was. Like, what are we doing here, man?
Well, I have more information now. I've seen him practice.
I thought he went to a small school, Rob. I thought that disqualified him.
Well, if I were the GM, he wouldn't have been a draft pick of mine, but Howie picked him, and he's here now. And Nolan Smith, I got news for you, Eagles fans. Nolan Smith is a stiff. He's an absolute stiff. There's going to be snaps.
I'm kind of leaning that way. I'm not ready to write him off, but I haven't seen enough from Nolan Smith. With Hunt, I'm just impressed. The draft thing I didn't like was the fact that he was a defensive back at Cornell a few years ago. Your premier edge rushers don't tend to be defensive backs at Cornell very often. But I think he's come along pretty well. I think Vic Fangio made that same point a few weeks ago. Considering that he was a defensive back at Cornell, he's doing all right.
Mr. Ellis checking back in. Yannick Ngakoue is still available. Do you think the Eagles could possibly sign him or at least see what I can do? I mean, sure.
3 years too late, but whatever.
Man, he didn't do anything after he left Jacksonville. Not really. It's amazing because you got the dim lights down there in Jacksonville. Nobody cares, even though they've been good here and there.
I always feel obligated in these conversations to point out that everybody's got to cut down to 53 eventually. And there are going to be names, that first week in September. There are going to be names, whether the guys that they're attached to are still as good as their names is another question. But they're going to be names that people go, "Ooh, we could come up with this guy." And so every now and then, one of those names belongs to somebody that that actually helps your team.
Carter Anderson, he wants to write off Jordan Davis.
Let's not do that right yet. I don't disagree with you, but high first round pick, you kind of have to get to the season and see what happens.
I mean, this is a big year for him.
It's a huge year for him.
Because now you're getting.
If he doesn't pop this year, then that's a massive mistake in the draft.
Because you could have had Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, and so far he's kind of like he's okay as a starting defensive tackle. He's not good. He's had a couple of dominant games, but nothing to write home about. And this whole thing, I get so tired. I went on another podcast and talked about this a few weeks ago with Jordan Davis about how the big story going into camp is what great shape he's in. But if you go back and read the stories from last year's camp, they were about what great shape he's in. The guy obviously doesn't stay in great shape, and that's really the problem more than, what he comes to camp with. But, we'll see. He hasn't played in the preseason, so you don't, and what they do in training camp for defensive tackles isn't really, he's not doing anything there that's going to make or break him as a player. I want to see him in the regular season, get halfway through the season, and I'll tell you if he's a bust or not.
Well, if he is out of shape and overweight, Vic Fangio is not only going to tell Jordan Davis, he's going to tell the newspaper and the media and the press conference. So maybe that lights a fire under him. I don't know. But yeah, big year for Jordan Davis. But no, I've at least seen like the Bills game last year in overtime. Jordan Davis was everywhere. He took over the fourth quarter from a defensive standpoint. And he took over overtime. He was tackling Josh Allen in the open field. It was nuts. And then he's been tired ever since. Then the collapse happened. So
he could play for the Phillies.
Yeah,
they need a lot of rest
before we got going. A little feast or famine lineup. That's what it is with Jordan Davis. Playing a little stock up, stock down. Nolan Smith, this is obviously a big year for him, just because I saw nothing out of him from last year. PY, how do you feel about Nolan Smith?
I think his stock up. He's got 2 sacks in the preseason so far. He's looked good. Obviously, not every rep is perfect, but it looks like he's trending in the right way. He's quick. He's quick off the edge, which I really love. I think he needs to work on some of his pass rush moves, but there's time for that. It's year 2. Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham was not a finished product in year 2.
No, he was coming back from an ACL, and he really didn't. With Jim Washburn as his coach, he didn't get a chance to really play.
Yuck.
Brandon Graham's first 4 years were kind of wasted a little bit. It was
Earl
almost
Thomas, man.
Yeah, it was almost like a Hassan Reddick saga when Hassan was in Arizona. It took a long time for Brandon to play even 50% of the snaps.
I think Brandon Graham is the most professional Philadelphia Eagle I've ever seen, at least. I mean, he had the ACL. He came back from that. He's doing pretty good. Then Chip Kelly comes in, tries to make him a linebacker.
And he did that,
And he did it, and he was okay. I mean, it was clearly not his forte. And then he comes in and he gets the big-time sack in the Super Bowl. Derek Barnett ball, the rest is history. Now he's going to get his farewell tour.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? 15, 20 snaps a game for BJ?
That's a lot.
That's
a lot for him right now. I'm more in the 8 to 10 range myself.
Then Nolan Smith better be good if you don't want him out there any more than that.
Yes.
Which I have no confidence in Nolan Smith.
But I think they might run a lot of weird jokery sets and things like that where they don't really need they could, if they have a whole bunch of D tackles, maybe, extra D tackle on the edge or something like that, extra linebacker on the edge, send Van Sumeren out there to blitz or something, as an extra guy. I don't know.
Now, Les, I will say this. If I see any 5-2, I'm putting my foot through my TV. I know it's new. I know it's a new scheme, and Vic Fangio is better than Desai and Mr. Pencil, Matt Patricia, but they played 5-2 way too much last year, and it got torched.
It did, yeah.
So
neither of the two could cover a receiver was one of the problems there. And their pass rush down the stretch just went to hell. Nobody could rush the passer down the stretch. It seemed like Fletch and BG had more juice than the young guys did.
And if you can call it a pass rush, I think that might be an insult to pass rushes.
I kind of wish Fletch had stuck around I kind of got the idea that he didn't want to take a lot less money and a lot lower profile role, that he would rather just walk away than do that. And that's fine. Everybody it has to do what they think is right. But from the Eagles standpoint, I think he could have stuck around and, filled a role on the roster.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't have hurt anything, to have him here. But that was not the way he wanted to do it.
Let's shift back to offense, stock up, stock down, or not even stock up, stock down. The backup quarterback battle. That seems to be
yes.
That seems to be the one that's kind of at the forefront of fan discussion. Tanner McKee versus Kenny Pickett. First and foremost, if either of those guys have to play in a real game,
we're in trouble.
We're in huge trouble.
Yeah, last year they were in better shape there. Mariota, I think, can get you through a game.
Yep.
And they didn't really have to do that with him. I guess he appeared in 3 games maybe. But you could have, with the team that went 10-1, not the team that played down the stretch, you could have won a game with Mariota. Crawling your way toward the end zone, but it wouldn't have been pretty. But you could have won a game with Pickett or McKee. I don't see that happening, but maybe I'm wrong. The thing that bothers me, so many people are. It's obvious that Kenny Pickett has no talent and Tanner McKee is a great talent. No. But it bothers me that Pickett is so bad.
Yeah.
It's one thing to wash out of Pittsburgh as the franchise quarterback. It's another thing to look like you've never been on a football field before. The guy has talent. You go back and read the draft reports. He's not the worst quarterback that ever lived, but I don't know whether he can't grasp this offense or whether he's hurrying things up too much, or the people he's playing with are so mismatched against the people he's playing against that it's, there's nothing he can do. I think that is a factor that too many people sort of discount. Tanner McKee is out there with guys that, aren't going to get near a roster sometimes, playing against guys, that aren't going to get near a roster sometimes. And it's a little bit easier, in the second half of preseason games. McKee and Pickett both looked bad at practice yesterday. Apparently, they didn't practice today, but all the reports were that they both had terrible days. It is what it is. They're not going to go out and get somebody else at this point, but not a good year for Jalen Hurts to get hurt.
Nope.
I don't think there would be a good year, but this definitely isn't it.
Well, I 100% agree with you. Mariota, if he has to go in for a spot start, I've seen you be kind of good in the NFL, Marcus.
Yeah.
Now, starter, you're a little bit of a draft bust, but you can give me a game or two if I need you. Neither of these guys can. And anyone who thinks Tanner McKee is he's the next Nick Foles. No. Nick Foles was way more accurate. Nick Foles
was a second-round pick. Let's be honest here.
Yeah,
I think it was third, but nonetheless, yeah.
But Nick Foles, he threw a very catchable ball. He had great. Didn't have a was one of the boys. He had the respect of the huddle. Does Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee have the respect of 10, 12, $15 million players across? I don't know.
Pickett was a prominent name coming out. Yeah, he was drafted higher than Nick Foles was, for example. But, I don't know what followed him from Pittsburgh. I know there was a lot of controversy there at the end over him supposedly not wanting to dress as a backup and stuff. I don't know. But there's talent there. I don't know what's happened to it. And sometimes that happens with guys. Sometimes you look at a guy after he's been knocked around a little bit and it's just not the same guy. But that happened with Kevin Cobb, who didn't start out to be a terrible quarterback. I don't know. I don't know what whether it matters whether Tanner. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if it matters if Tanner McKee is 2 and Pickett is 3. Or the other way around, because I just don't see a whole lot there from either. I wish Pickett had more poise. I think McKee at least has poise. if not great talent.
Carter Anderson checking us out on Facebook. Any concerns on the linebackers? Hashtag agree.
Yeah.
Hashtag yes. I have concerns about every level of this defense.
Yeah.
I think, I don't have the Eagles in the Super Bowl. When we do our prediction show, however we work that out here at the platform, the Eagles will not be my NFC representative in the Super Bowl. They won't. I don't trust this defense enough for me to do that. I have concerns at edge rusher. I have concerns at linebacker. I have concerns in the secondary. I'll throw this out to you guys. This is kind of what I've been kicking around with my friends through our group chats and whatnot. 4 minutes to go in a football game. You need a stop. Who are you looking to make the big play? The Eagles don't have anybody. Unless I'm missing something.
Oh, Jalen Carter or Slay, but maybe not. I'm not heartily disagreeing with you. The linebacking thing, I actually wrote about that a couple of days ago for PHLY. If anybody wants to spring for $80, the thing that it strikes me about the linebacking group is that's the one position on the team where, not for the first time in recent years, you look at them and you say, okay, this guy and this guy and this guy are good guys to have on your team, playing special teams and stuff like that. But who among them would be a starter on another upper tier contender? Nobody. None of them would.
I'm totally with you. They have a lot of nice players on this defense. No alpha males.
Well, I don't mean on the defense. I mean the linebackers. But I just don't see a linebacker there that
adding the defense to it.
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all. Darius Slay is very much an alpha male. Whether he's still as good as he was a few years ago, I don't know. But there are other guys that could probably. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is an alpha male, but
he's probably the closest to what I just described. 4 minutes to go in a game, you need a stop or a big play.
Right.
That the answer is probably C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah.
But Les, I look at the Lions; they have Aiden Hutchinson. The Niners have superstars all over the place. A really good football team.
Oh yeah. The defense propels that team. I think a lot. I don't know what the defense is going to look like. I think it's a lot better than last year in some ways, but the linebacking, which is what we started off with here on. Yeah. Is we talked last week, I think, about Zach Bond and White, Devin White. It's just that's not a great tandem. I'm glad to see Nakobe Dean, showing some signs of life here. I don't know exactly how much stock to put in that, but it's very welcome because they need him to be what he was drafted to be 2 years ago. Or however many years ago it was. And he hasn't been that, and he hasn't been healthy. But, he kind of sat out his rookie. It isn't fair to say he wasn't healthy his rookie year. He just didn't play other than special teams. But, they badly need for somebody like Nakobe Dean to step up or to make an acquisition on cutdown day.
I get to revise my point.
Okay.
They need a Jalix Hunt. They need a Nakobe Dean. They need a Quinion Mitchell, a Jordan Davis, somebody like that who we're talking about as fringe guys. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not. We don't really know. One of them has to turn into a premier player. I'm confident about them going to the Super Bowl.
You mean this year? Turn into a premier player this year? Because Quinion Mitchell is going to be a premier player unless he gets hurt or something. But
I've thought about a lot of guys that have come through here, Les, and I've seen a lot of them fall on their face, and some of them are good. So, I need to see it. Now, obviously, if some of those guys pop and they turn into really good players, the whole outlook changes because they're going to score 30 points a game. No one can.
They really should, and that changes the whole dynamic if you're playing from ahead, and that's one of the things that happened last year, the difference between playing from ahead and playing behind. It was not a defense constructed to play from behind at all. I don't know about this year's defense, but if they're playing ahead, I trust Vic Fangio. I trust some of the guys they have on that unit to make it better than last year. And whether that's going to be really super good or not, the Super Bowl, I don't know about the Super Bowl. I'm not ready to talk about that yet, but I do think they have a more favorable schedule. I do think, they're probably a little better team overall than they were last year, despite missing Kelsey and Cox. I really like the Kellen Moore thing. I like the Fangio thing, and have Sirianni stay out of the way. And yesterday he was pretending to be the punter in a special teams drill. Let him do stuff like that.
Your thoughts on the linebackers, defense, or you can introduce a new topic.
Yeah.
Nothing. All right, Les, you kind of stole my thunder with Nick.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
About Nick. You're going to talk about Nick?
I do want to talk about Nick. What does he do?
Well, I was kind of joking, but I do think
I'm not.
His role is to make sure it's all meshing together, I guess, in the best construct I can put on it. I'm not a big fan of this setup in terms, philosophically. I mean, they did bring him here to run an offense that he's now not running. But that said, it could work if he takes the right attitude toward it and things go well. He can run around and keep parts moving together, keep people excited, keep players. There's always a guy like Hassan Reddick last year who's not real happy with his situation, and maybe it doesn't become a huge problem this year if Sirianni is really attuned to stuff like that. But it's a very odd situation, and it's not like any of the other coach CEO situations in the league because Nick's not drafting players. And even like in Baltimore, okay, John Harbaugh isn't the defensive coordinator, but it's John Harbaugh's defense, and that's where he comes from. And when he talks, the people in the defensive room listen. He's also won a Super Bowl as a head coach, so everybody listens. With Nick, I don't know that you have that. He's going to spend most of his time with the offensive guys. I don't think he's going to spend a lot of time with the quarterback because I don't think the quarterback wants Nick to spend a lot of time with him.
100% agree with that.
But the receiver group, that's something. I think Nick knows a lot about receivers. I really do. I think he's probably an excellent wide receivers coach. And, he can help those guys. There's a lot of things he could do. Whether they're things that a head coach normally does is another question.
PY, Nick Sirianni, what do you think about the hierarchy that has been set up here in Philadelphia?
I think it works. Like, I understand that a lot of people don't like CEO head coaches. Like, I'm not the biggest fan. But once again, like, people were clamoring for Mike Tomlin. Like, with Mike Tomlin comes here, he's the CEO head coach. Everything's going to work out. What in the last decade in Pittsburgh
has worked out?
Makes you think that that's going to work out here, that's what we need. Like, I wasn't the biggest Nick fan down the stretch, but my whole thing in life is accountability. My father has always stated, 3 things make a man: honor, respect, and always keeping your word. Nick Sirianni has checked all those boxes. Like, you have to be a certain type of man to be like, hey, I can't do this. I need to do it a different way, and I'll do it the way you need me to do it because of my failures to make this a success. A lot of people I know in life do not have the internal fortitude to be like, I failed, I can't do it this way. Show me what I need to do to be a success moving forward. Towards most people would just be like, screw it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do. Look at Doug Peterson. We all love Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson told Howie to his face, screw you. I'm keeping Press Taylor. By the way, he's still keeping Press Taylor in Jacksonville, and it's biting him in the ass. Like some people, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And that's fine.
That's very well said, Peter, but I would buy that totally if I knew that Nick Sirianni was actually saying all those things rather than having those things dictated to him and acquiescing, which is very, very different. Okay, this is what I have to do to keep my job. I reluctantly, that's kind of the feel that I have. And I see a lot of, as long as they're winning, it'll all be great. But if problems arise, if the offense isn't scoring 30 points a game, sooner or later you're going to hear, well, Nick wanted to do X, but they put Kellen Moore in there, and it'll happen. And but if things go well, it won't happen. So I think it can work. I don't think it has to work. I think it's an unwieldy setup. I don't think it's going to work long term, because if they're good, Kellen Moore will be somewhere else as a head coach, and they'll be doing this again.
It won't matter.
Yeah. But that's kind of what I think. I think it's a very odd situation, and I see a lot of problems that could come up, but if Moore and Fangio are as good as we think they are, maybe those problems won't come up.
I think odd is a great word to describe it, because he's coach vibe. He's coach vibes. Like this guy.
Sometimes that's what you need.
Sometimes that's what you need. You're right. But this is a guy who clearly went into his exit interview after that collapse and told Howie and Jeffrey, just don't fire me. I'll do whatever you want. Hire whoever you want. I'll just be coach vibes and stay out of the way and just chip in and be the CEO guy.
Not everyone can do that.
You're right. Not everyone could. Doug wasn't willing to do it, but Doug knew he'd get another job right away.
He won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, but when he gets fired in Jacksonville mid-season because they're going to stink, another hot take, bold prediction, whatever you want to say, I mean, he might not get another job. But back to Nick. So he just went in and said, do whatever. Just don't fire me. I want the paycheck. I want to be a head coach. And, I'll just learn as I go. But, when you're hired to be an offensive coach, and remember, in his tenure, what was it, 7 games he called plays right off the bat?
Yep.
And it didn't go well. Yeah.
2-5 they went.
Yep.
And then he relinquished the play calling duties to Steichen. It was a game at Denver in a must-win game, and it was all systems go from there.
Yep.
They went down to Tampa and they lost. Then the next year with the full off season with Steichen, they went to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So, and then it all falls apart, and you need to bring in a high-profile offensive coordinator to supplement your offensive head coach when he was brought in because of his offensive mind. That's odd to me, as you put it, Les. So
we're Philadelphia. We're nothing if not odd. But at the end of the day, when it comes to Nick Sirianni, the Eagles' success is not going to be determined by Nick Sirianni. If they fail, he's gone. If they succeed, he's here. But let's keep it 100.
Well,
the success of this season has nothing to do with Nick Sirianni. It's going to be if you put the right pieces together. If you hire the right coordinators. If Kellen Moore's offense stinks, it doesn't matter what Nick Sirianni does. If Vic Fangio can't scheme his players correctly and you're giving up 40 points per game, it doesn't matter. Those are the two deciding factors for the season. If they are doing their job and they are doing things in a successful fashion, we will be a good football team, and nobody will give a rat's ass about Nick Sirianni.
Well, let me throw this at you then. What if the Eagles are really good?
Okay.
And the offense is really good.
Okay.
And Kellen Moore, we all agree that Nick Sirianni is coach vibes and doesn't do much. His main job is to stay out of the way, which makes me cringe when I say it out loud. Who's to say Kellen Moore, even if the Eagles are good and he's about to get another job in the offseason, Jeffrey doesn't step in like, whoa. Stay here, Kellen. Be our head coach.
I can't see that happening. Like even if they have a really good season, like think about all the great seasons he had in Dallas, like as an offensive coordinator. He didn't get any real head coaching offers.
But they never had a great season in terms of the playoffs. It was all great regular season. I could see what Rob's saying. If they win a playoff game and then lose the next one, and the offense has been great all year, I can kind of see. I don't think it'll happen, but it's possible. It's certainly possible. Jeffrey changes his mind.
He does.
The Chip Kelly year was quite instructive to me on this, the last year of Chip Kelly, where we started out with the greatest leader in the history of the world, and then he was gone before the last game. We'll see. I hear different things. We keep hearing that Jeffrey thinks Nick is some sort of visionary and all this stuff. If you read that Tim McManus, Jerry Fowler story a few weeks ago, it just boggles my mind that they went through this for 2 months and Howie or Jeffrey couldn't get people to sit down and figure out, how to get around some of these problems and get things back on track. And the fact that Nick couldn't, that Hurts was so disaffected from him. And apparently Brian Johnson, the story was very, very kind to Brian Johnson. I don't know if you noticed.
Yes, it was.
And you kind of wonder, there were people last year saying this isn't what Brian Johnson would be doing if he were running the offense. Yet he took the fall for it. And I just wonder how players feel about that. I think we have a pretty good idea how Jalen Hurts feels about it. Not real great.
All right. Let's catch up on some comments. We got about 10 minutes left here.
Okay.
Great show. A lot of good banter. John Addock, he disagrees to our poll question. How hard is it to grab a small wide out late in the draft? Not the hardest thing, but we don't forget.
You mean like Quez Watkins?
I mean, it is kind of hard because the Eagles don't have one. So
yeah.
Johnny is another set of skills.
They did take wide receivers late. They took Quez, and there was that other guy they took the same year in the 6th round or something.
The Boise State. He was real fast.
Yeah.
He was even worse than Quez Watkins. I don't even think
they do take wide receivers late. They just don't always take good ones. And sometimes they bring in guys that, like DeAndre Carter, still playing in the league.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
Let's see. BZ215. Kenny Pickett doesn't deserve QB2, point blank.
Neither does McKee.
Yeah, I just don't think there's that much difference. I don't think there's as big a difference as fans perceive, in that.
Bob Brinkman checking in on. I think the Birds might use Gainwell on the slot if they need a wide receiver 3.
That's a very good thought because I don't see a lot of reps for him at running back, and that you could definitely do that. In fact, you could almost make that switch if you wanted to do it.
I think Will Shipley could fit that mold as well, and he says he thinks they're going to keep four running backs on the active roster.
Yeah,
which fits because there's not.
I like it. I might like this better than any of the other options we've discussed. Actually,
John Addock, this is the year.
Yeah, the drafting.
Yes. The defense is really young, but there's a lot of talent.
Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean. We need to see these guys. CJ is a big play guy, yes.
Big play guy. He's probably closest to the classification, like a big play guy in his prime. So hopefully he makes some good plays when the defense needs him the most. It doesn't have to be the 2000 Ravens defense for this team to be successful.
Oh no, absolutely.
They just don't. It's just not set up that way. And if they do have to be the 2000 Ravens, then something's gone horribly wrong.
Right.
You're giving Nick too much credit. Nick knows.
I haven't given him any credit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think none of the three of us pounded the table and said, no, Nick's like this genius. The visionary thing that, Les, you mentioned, and I guess it was mentioned in the McManus Fowler article a little bit, him being a visionary, like, I don't see that at all. Like, Chip Kelly was a visionary.
Yeah. Strategically, Nick is not a visionary. I think he connects really well with players, especially for a guy who didn't play in the league. Usually the only guys that get a lot of cred in the locker room like that are guys that just came off the field and are, played in the Pro Bowl and stuff. I think players react to his personality, but ultimately, to respect a coach, you have to believe that he knows how to make you better. And 2 years ago, I think a lot of guys thought that about Nick. Now I am not so sure.
Mr. Wing, again, that's why Jalen lost respect for Nick, because he's a puppet for Howie. If Moore does well and becomes head coach, are we stuck with Nick again?
Well, I don't think having a puppet for Howie has anything to do with it. I just think his offense wasn't working, and he wouldn't take any outside ideas as to.
He was rigid.
Yeah, I don't think Howie's designing plays. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we did say that if Moore does well, then what happens?
Hater, I'm going to read that. We don't steal content more often than not.
Talking about there, but have a nice day.
Have a nice day. If anything, jabronis out there steal from A2D Radio.
We discussed the topics that I think everybody in the world is discussing.
What a clown.
Yeah.
Like, you're just looking for attention.
Copyrighted the idea of the Eagles needing a wide receiver 3. I'm unaware of it.
Who isn't talking about the wide receiver 3 right now? Like what are we doing? Like it's towards the end of August. Everyone's talking about the same stuff. Like go away.
Backup quarterback.
Bill would be the next. No, I don't think that. I could be totally wrong, and please make fun of me mercilessly if I am, but Bill's going to be, 73 years old? Jeffrey Lurie doing that. The way things went with Parcells, not Parcells. That would be something, wouldn't it? The way things went in New England those last few years, I don't see that. I don't see the big guy coming.
I am 1,000% out on that scenario. I think he's going to be. I think him and Dak are going to be in New York next year.
Woo!
That's an interesting take. That's an interesting take. I'd actually pay to see that.
Nick Wright said it, so I guess I'm stealing content again.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I think he's.
I don't ever listen to that.
I read. So I didn't listen to it. So I'll give myself a little pat on the back because that guy is something else. All right, few minutes left. Closing thoughts. My closing thought would be: it seems we have our answer about guard. It's going to be
Mekhi Becton,
and he'll go down injured week 1.
Yep. In true Eagles fashion.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that he played one series in each of the preseason games tells me that he's.
Yeah. And the other guy can't get on the field. That's the other thing that keeps happening. Tyler Steen left last week's game, with the same injury, I guess. They haven't let him sit long enough to heal it. And that usually works out real great when you do that. Yeah, my closing thought would be, you can see, I know fans don't like it when they don't play the starters in the preseason games.
Who cares?
But if you look at the injury list for the Eagles right now, it's a long one. And there are all these guys that are playing in the preseason games right now. Yeah. And it's like, do you want that or not? I mean, that's the choice. Unfortunately, it's not a good choice, but that's the choice. And this Vikings game coming up Saturday, I'm going to be real interested to see guys like Booker that look good, guys like Jenkins, Shipley. I'm fine watching that. Even if win or lose, whatever happens, I don't need to see the starters.
For me, even Shipley is too far up the pecking order to play on Saturday.
Maybe so. Yeah.
It's funny that
this is a practice squad game. That's what it is. Like, all the guys who are trying to be practice squad players, those are the guys who should be playing.
Because
when they played 4 preseason games, they used to that 4th preseason game, they would actually sign guys to play in that game.
That had GJ game.
They had no interest whatsoever in these guys being on their football team. But it's like, hey, we could throw this guy out there and give him 50 snaps and not endangering the players we care about. It was awful.
I mean, it's ironic that we're playing the Vikings in the 3rd preseason game, because they've been playing guys because they picked the quarterback in the 1st round. They're trying to get, everything ship shape, and all their guys are getting hurt.
Oh, God.
Can I interest you in a Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, exactly.
Or a Tanner McKee?
Gently used, yeah.
Go ahead. Tanner, take one of them. You only need one. I don't know. I don't care. But whatever with the backup quarterback thing. Getting a lot of publicity for 2 guys that
we're a city that's obsessed with the backup. It's always been that way.
It's true. It's a good point. Yes.
It's a weird fetish in Philadelphia. I don't understand.
Usually the obsession, though, as I said earlier, the obsession has to do with whether the backup should be the starter or not. This is a bit different.
But I think people just put way too much stock in it, regardless of whatever it is. Like, they have backup on the mind, like they always do.
Yep. When I first moved to Philly, it was Ron Jaworski and Joe Pisarcik.
Oh my God.
PY, closing thought.
At the end of the day, it's if everyone else isn't doing their jobs, it's not going to matter what Nick Sirianni does.
Okay.
All right, that'll do it there. Tom Arnone agrees to the poll. Coming in hot, late, love it. That'll do it for this edition of Eagles Talk. Be 1 week closer, barreling towards Brazil. For Les Bowen, PY, I'm Rob Brinkman. Peace out, everybody.
Yes.
See ya.